Hi again. Let's continue with our GitHub Actions documentation. So today we will have some example to run a GitHub action right over here, and we'll go to GitHub and check the available tabs to run our GitHub Actions and yes, the results. So here we are in the GitHub docs where we are at the quick start. So we can go right through it and do the example provided in the documentation. Okay, let me switch the view a bit. And now, okay, I believe now everything will be seen. Okay, so the introduction to the quick start. So GitHub Action is a continuous integration and continuous delivery platform that allows you to automate your build, test, and deployment pipeline. You can create workflows that run tests whenever you push a change to your repository, or that deploy merge pull requests to production. So we know that already, but it's a good way to learn things, to repeat that until it's embedded in your brain. Okay. This quick start guide shows you how to use the user interface of GitHub to add a workflow that demonstrates some of the essential features of GitHub Actions. To get started with pre-configured workflows, browse through the list of templates in Starter Workflows repository and see more information here. For an overview of GitHub Actions workflows, you can see also this link about workflows. If you want to learn about the various components that make up GitHub Actions, see Understanding GitHub Actions. Okay, that might be useful. Let me check, is it manage workflows, share automation. Well, I don't see it currently in the documentation. Yeah, so maybe I'll just open it in a separate tab and check it later if it's worth mentioning what are the components running the GitHub Actions runner. Okay, using workflow templates. GitHub provides pre-configured workflow templates that you can use as is or customize to create your own workflow. GitHub analyzes your code and shows you a workflow template that might be useful for your repository. For example, if your repository contains Node.js code, you see suggestions for Node.js projects. Yeah, makes sense. These workflow templates are designed to help you get up and running quickly, offering a range of configurations such as CI, deployments, automation, code scanning, and pages. Okay. Use these workflows as a starting place to build your custom workflow or use them as is. You can browse the full list of workflow templates again in the repository. For more information, see using workflow templates. So the prerequisites. What we should know before trying to run a workflow. This guide assumes that you have at least a basic knowledge of how to use GitHub. Okay, if you don't, you'll find it helpful to read some more articles and documentations. So yeah, I'll assume that also that we are already users of GitHub. You have a repository. Yes, I do have a few more repositories, and I hope you do too. You have access to GitHub Actions. Okay. Okay, so let's go direct. Let's go to creating our workflow and just do the example as described in the instruction. Okay, I'll be using this repository, Hello World repo, and I have here an Actions tab where I have been running some actions in the past, but currently I have no workflow configured, so I'll be using this repository. You should create your own repository in GitHub and use it over there. Okay, so how can we configure our workflow and run an action? In your repository on GitHub, create a workflow file called GitHub Actions demo YAML in the GitHub Workflows directory. Okay, to do this, if the GitHub Workflows directory already exists, navigate to that directory on GitHub, click Add Files, create new files. If your repository doesn't have that, go to the main page of the repository on GitHub, add a file, click create new file, and name the file as is to create the git.github and workflow directories and the GitHub Actions YAML file instead. Well, instead of doing this in GitHub, I'll be just using VS Code, to which I have connected repository, and I'll be just committing the changes to my repo. Copy the YAML file contents in the GitHub Actions demo file. So maybe what's worth doing before writing any GitHub Actions is go to extensions. Here, I already have written it, but you can search for GitHub Actions plugins for VS Code and install the GitHub Actions official plugin and some schema validator. I don't know which one would you choose. I choose the GitHub from Matthew.to. Hope well, I butchered it. Anyway, okay, let's create our file in our repository. So we need a GitHub workflows, let's call it sample action YAML file, and in this file we'll just copy and paste the code provided here in this example. As we can see, the workflow has its name, it has a run name, it has a defined event which will be push, and we have our jobs: explore GitHub Actions. We have defined a runner, so we'll be using the Ubuntu latest runner, and we have our predefined steps. As we can see, each step has just a command which will echo, so it will just display the information written in the text and some of the GitHub provided values. So let me save this file. Am I saving it? Yeah, now I save it. And let's add it to our commit. And let's push it to our repository. So let me switch the view a bit. I'll open my Actions tab, and I'll push the code. We have the event which triggers this workflow as a push, so once I push it, the workflow should trigger, the event should trigger the workflow in our GitHub Actions. Okay, so I have pushed my changes to the repository. If I refresh my Actions tab, I should see my workflow, but it's not here. So let me check GitHub workflow. Okay, so what's my mistake? GitHub workflows. So yeah, you need to be careful and don't make any typo in the directory in which the workflow is being present. So again, let's stage our changes and push them. Let's see, now we have GitHub workflows and we have pending info. So let's go to our actions, and we have GitHub Actions demo, and we have a running workflow. We can now click on it, and here we have our workflow diagram. Once we click on one of the jobs, we can see the steps and the logs of all the jobs. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation. At this stage, you don't need to understand the details of this workflow. For now, you can just copy and paste the content as we did into the file. After completing this quick start guide, you can learn about the syntax of workflow files, and for an explanation of GitHub Actions context, such as GitHub actor and GitHub event name. Okay, so now we have committed the changes and we push that to report. That's the reason why the workflow has been triggered and has been run. In the proposed changes dialog, select either the option to commit the default branch. So this will be instruction if you'll be doing this in your GitHub repository to commit the changes. And this also should trigger our workflow. So if you'll be doing this in the repository, so let's go to our GitHub workflow. I can check this workflow and I can edit it here. So for example, let's add a step. Previous workflow didn't have this sample step. Now we're gonna this. Now we can click here the commit change right below my camera preview. Yeah, we want to commit directly to the main branch. We don't have to create any feature branch to test it, and it should be committed this way. And if we go to the GitHub Actions, we can see that this commit also triggered our action. And again, we have our diagram and we have our job and all the steps of the jobs, and here is the first step that we added. Okay, so here you have instructions to verify your workflow results. This is what we just done. Under the action tabs, we inspected our workflow, which has run successfully. For the list of workflows, click on the name of the run you want to see. Yeah, so that's the graph of the workflow and the steps and the commands. So yeah, I guess that will be all for today's video. Once you go to the workflow and check each of the steps, you can see so at this step there is no variable. By a push. Oh no, okay, so this was probably a push event, that's why we have push. This job now is running on Linux server hosted by GitHub, so probably Linux server was a context variable. Here we have the name of the branch, so again we can also have the name of the branch in our GitHub context and the name of our repository. So yeah, all this information is about the runner, about the repository, about the person, and the event triggering the action are available to us in the workflow. And again, we have some steps. So yeah, we will talk more about the actions. So actions are predefined, as we know, predefined automated tasks which were written by someone else, and we have here a checkout action which connects to our repository, so we can use the code from our repository in our action. And yeah, you can inspect all that was displayed here. So that will be all for today. Next time we'll be checking the next information in the documentation about the workflows. So we have some basic information about the syntax in the YAML files. We have also a strategy, how to use a matrix strategy, and probably we have also environments. So yeah, we'll be talking about the workflows, their syntax, and I'll see you there in the next video. Thanks for coming by. See you soon. Bye bye.